Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Transport Fever 2. In this mod showcase, I'm looking at stations. There are a few station mods on the Steam Workshop, and these are the ones that I've found to be the most enjoyable to use. Starting off with the street slim bus and truck zones. What you see over here is a standard road, but with a twist. This is the street slim bus stop. You got a couple of different options for these. You got the medium street and you have the large street. And what happens over here is that it doesn't actually add the bus stop. You need to do that yourself. But what it does add is these sectors, these, let's say the zones where the bus can actually stop. Now, keep in mind, the bus will stop as close as possible to your bus stop itself. So that means that this bus, if I place a bus stop over here, it's going to go and stand right on that sector. Where I think the supposed action is that it stands over here, but I could be entirely mistaken over there. Now, with this, I'm going to let you see what happens. Currently, there are no people waiting for this particular bus stop, but over here... No, unfortunately not. This is kind of what it looks like. The bus, more or less, and in this case it stops for the traffic light, more or less is capable of stopping on one of these zones. Now that's not all that these things do. They also allow other traffic to bypass the bus, so that you don't have a massive amount of congestion piling up behind your bus, and that is really, really nice. So that if there is, let's say, a bus parked over here, this road vehicle could still pass by it. So you're not causing traffic jams behind your bus stops. Now you also have these in a truck stop variant. You can see that the little picture here that says loading and unloading, these are the truck stops. And you can see where that particular section of slim truck stop stops, because that's where the road becomes a little narrower. Over here you have just enough space for normal vehicles to pass. Again, as with the other ones, you need to make sure that you don't only upgrade the road, you don't only need to install a medium truck zone, but you also need to set up a truck stop, a truck unload stop in this case. Now I have a truck running around somewhere. Let me bring that guy up. Oh, he's right over here. Now these allow you to get quite a bit of diversity and quite a bit easier access for your trucks to drop off stuff. And I really like that addition. It makes the game also a little bit more fluent in the sense that you now have the capability of dropping off stuff without interfering. Here we go. This is what I mean. The truck is allowed to use these sectors. I suppose you could call them, let's say, bus lanes for trucks. And the standard car is not allowed to go there. The truck can stop. Now currently it doesn't really have any particular stuff to offload, but this is how you do it. And of course, if you place your truck stop over, well, let's say over here, it probably doesn't line up as nicely. So I would try and make sure that you have that, whoops, sorry about your house, that you have that truck stop right about there, so that it does fit with the particular truck. Now if you have trucks which are too long or too short, it might not always perfectly line up, but you still have the opportunity to try and fix that as much as you can. Now these things come in two different varieties. Over here I have the medium ones. These are the ones that I showed you, and these are the large lanes. So you have two, let's say, bypass lanes, or two standard lanes, and one for the buses, and similar for the trucks. Again, you don't just plunk these down and hope that a vehicle stops, because they don't. They just consider it a particular lane for them, but what they do allow you to do is then set up a truck stop, and that is when it becomes an actual stop for your vehicle. Really nice mod. I think it adds quite a bit to the game, and especially on busy town roads. Now this is not that busy, but if you have a large city and you need to offload either people or cargo, or, well, you could consider people cargo, I suppose, then you can do so by using these upgraded lanes. Alright, moving on to number 2. These are the urban bus stops. I'm going to be using the mod that I just showcased in this particular section, because it ties in so beautifully. The first mod that I lined up is the slim bus lines, and what you then can do with the urban bus stops mod is add bus stops which look a hell of a lot nicer than the standard ones. These are the standard bus tram stops. They're not really anything special. They're just a bench with a little bit of, what is that, an ATM or a card machine, and information about when the bus is coming there, you know, the basics. But what this new mod allows you to do, urban bus stops, is add bus stops which look just a lot more modern. So you have the little information sign over here. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was digital as well. You have even some advertisements on the side of the bus stop. And, well, so long as there are no aggressive youths or firework being set off close to this bus stop, as at least they are over here in the Netherlands, there will be glass inside of these bus stops. Now, you got a couple of different options here. The one that I just deployed is the modern bus stop. You also have a large without a glass roof. Let's see if I actually can fit these things in here somewhere. These are the ones, as you can see, that just have a, well, a solid roof, as opposed to this one, where you can see the passengers through the roof of that bus stop. The other one is going to be just one sign. It doesn't do much more than that. It is just a sign. So if it rains, you get wet. But then again, I guess it never rains in Transport Fever 2, or at least I've never seen it happen. Weather effects, currently at least, are not a thing. You then have the modern bus stop. This is the small variant. I am running out of roads. You have the small variant, which is, I think, about half of the large one. Yeah, something like that. And you also have that one with the solid roof. So you have options galore, depending on what you like. If you have a little bit of room, go with the modern bus stop. If you have a lot of room, or you feel like you want to accommodate a lot of passengers because that plays better with your particular build, then I would go for the modern bus stop, large with glass roof, or with without the glass on the roof. And again, these ties in really, really nice with the other mods, because, well, it could be an entirely personal opinion, of course, but I think that these look a hell of a lot better with the standard, with the improved bus lanes from the previous mod, than just having a bus stop over here in the middle of the road, where you're going to be congesting, because a bus cannot, well, a bus can stop here, all right, but it's going to have a whole slew of vehicles behind it. Whereas if you have this mod, so that adds the lanes, and then you have the urban bus stops, that actually looks really, really nice. So that's number 2. And again, link down below in the description. Next up, we have the UK generic country halt / station modules. This train station is designed to be a country halt, so the way that I have placed it down right now in Trowbridge is not exactly how it should be, because these things are supposed to be intermediate stops, not terminal stations, and on top of that, I wouldn't really recommend using these stations for anything like a large town. Reason being, you cannot really expend too much if you just want to go with the generic country halts. Now, I'm going to delete this station and rebuild it, so you can see what we have. You start out with a generic, UK generic passenger halt, and you have a couple of different options on the right-hand side. You can select the trim. Now, it is, I don't believe it's easy to see in, oh yeah, it is. The trim is the color of the sign. So right now, I placed down a red trim. If I place down a blue trim, you can definitely see the difference. There. That's the trim. That's the difference right there. Now, the stations, and this is very important, do not come standard with a catchment area. So what I have right now, I'm going to go with the blue one. You can see that it sort of tries to catch on, but it never quite does. That's something that you really need to wrap your head around in this mod. Because what you need to do is configure, and then go to miscellaneous, and then add the side entrance narrow platform. If you don't have these, or any of the other variants, then the passenger station is just not connected. So now it's actually connecting, and now it's actually catching a fair bit of Trowbridge. But without that, you don't actually have a catchment area. Now, of course, one simple platform is not everything you have. You can get additional platforms. And what I really like about this mod is that you can have those different colors. So you can have a couple of different lines. Let's say here we have the black, the brown, the red, and the blue. And with that, oh, sorry, there's a few more. You can actually select what sort of line color you want. So let's say you have a line that goes through a couple of towns, through the countryside. you can have that set up as, let's say, the black line. And for additional role-playing purposes, you can only make those things have the black trims. Now, there is one thing that I have noticed about this mod. If I set up an additional set of tracks, you're going to find out what I mean. I'm setting up an additional set of tracks. Then I have a platform. This works. So you have one track going one way and the other track going the other way. If I then set up another track, well, it doesn't quite seem to align nicely. So what you have over here, I would say, is a mod that is perfectly suited for country stations, as the mod name indicates. But for anything larger, I wouldn't recommend it. Because, sure enough, the game does sort of see it as a terminal. But I believe that I cannot put down any terminals between these. So I cannot put any platforms down, and that is very important. They don't come with any cargo buildings either. It is just a passenger halt. They do, however, come with some passenger buildings. In the same colors, or well, relatively the same colors as the ones that you can see being used by the mod itself, or by the trimmings. And from what I've been able to tell, these passenger stops, or these passenger shelters, don't really do much. They just look nice. But that is all that they do. They just look nice and, well, they're there for decorative purposes. They don't actually provide any sort of shelter. I don't really know if passengers are going to go to them. But then again, that's not really the point. This is a country halt. Another mod that can seriously improve the way that your train stations look, at least in my opinion, is the modular station roof. This is a mod that adds different versions of this roof. Now, it is something that, at least here in the Netherlands, is really quite familiar. Amsterdam has one of these arch roofs. Another station, Haarlem, also has it. The way that these build are adaptive. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to go with a standard station. So let's say you have a passenger station and you have 2 tracks. Normally, the game throws down these sort of small overspans that keep passengers dry, supposedly. Although, as we've established, it doesn't really ever rain in this game. What you then do is go to Configure, and you delete the roofs as they are. Then, you can add in the Miscellaneous tab, and don't look at all the mods that I have installed, it is this one, the Large Classic Roof Station. If you add a part over here, and then a part over there, then the game automatically figures, aha, I need to build a roof over that. Now let's say that I want to have a bigger station. That is entirely possible. So in that case, I'm going to have a couple more platforms over here. I'm going to have a couple more tracks. And then another platform over there. And now I want to make sure that I have a roof that spans over all the tracks. Not a problem, you add them on the sides, and the game immediately modules or adapts the roof to be spanning over all the tracks. If that's not really to your fancy, then that's, well, entirely up to you, because if that's not what you like, then you can go with 2 smaller arches. So what you can do is set up an arch over there, start another one here, and close it up over there. And the game will, in the, let's say, the middle of the 2 tracks over here, make a very small arch, and that way also have an overspanning over that little bit. You can make these, from what I've seen, as big as you like. Let's go with a massive train station of 8 tracks. I'm going to remove all the existing roofs. And now set up the big roof. So we're going to start here and we're going to end over there. And there you go. That is one really big station hall. And this is, well, in a way, something that Amsterdam Central Station over here looks like. Really, really nice mod. I really like the adaptability and the flexibility, because you decide how you want to make this thing look. Do you want to have the smaller arches? Do you want to have one big arch? Do you have, for example, one that goes over just 2 tracks and then you have a cargo platform? It is entirely up to you. So that's the modular station roof. Definitely recommended. Another mod that's very handy if you have a map that's, well, mountainous or that has a bunch of hills close to your towns is the mod that's called Sloped Train Station. What this mod allows you to do is make the train station come in at a slope. What I did was make a small, let's say, semi-wall around this town. Of course, you could argue that, well, you shouldn't be placing a train station down there at all. You should just place it somewhere where it's easier. Maybe, but let's say that I don't want to do that and I want to have it closer to this slope. Normally, train stations just flatten whatever they happen to be on. But this mod adds a slider. It adds a slope percentage. Normally, you have them like this. This is the 0%. But if I can slide this to the left or the right, I'm going to have a station slanted at an 8%, well, variance, I suppose, or a minus 8%. In which case, you can have a train station that's, and this looks really weird, having three train stations this close together. But it's just to give you an idea of what the train stations look like. This is the flat one, this is the +8, and this is the -8. And you can actually have a train station like this on a hill. And of course, these train stations can then be added, or well, can be adjusted to also have, including the other mods. From what I have seen, they are interoperable. So you can have the modular station roofs, you can have the generic country halts. So what I can do over... Oh, actually no, sorry. It does not work with the UK generic country halts. But it does seem to work with the others. So if you have a slope around your town, then you can have... let's say I'm going to delete these two. You can have a station like this. And that way make sure that it... Well, it sort of ties into the terrain a little better, without making your train station exceptionally expensive. That is the sloped station, or the sloped train station mod. Definitely a nice addition to the game, and I think it should be something that is in vanilla, because it just makes your quality of life quite a bit better. Now, in case you hadn't figured it yet, I am Dutch, and that gives me a preference for anything that adds Dutch train stations. And this one does, but it also makes it look really, really good. You get a lot of different options in this NL Modular Station mod. This is a Dutch train station that I have set up. It is a station that gets added by the mod, and you have a lot of different options when you place it down. When you place it down, you can get the options that you see here on the right. Normally, with a normal train station, you don't get nearly as many. You get the tracks, the length, the track type, catenary. Slope is added by the sloped train station mod that I just showed you. So let's say you get 1, 2, 3, 4 options. What I get with this one is a whole lot more. I get tracks, length, platform connector, main building, track type, catenary, and then I get slope. So you get this additional option of what sort of platform connector would you like, and what sort of main building would you like. In this case, I'm going to go with a large train station that has a large main building. So that immediately gets added. And what I also want is a 240 meter platform. And what you can see the game do is create these overpasses over the tracks. The alternative, what the game normally uses, are the underpasses. This is when the passengers use these stairs to go underneath the platform and then use the little tunnels to go from one track to another. The overpass, by contrast, is one that, as the name indicates, goes right over. So people would walk up the stairs and come out on a different platform. And this is very, very real. The Netherlands actually has these sort of train stations. Now this is not the only thing that the mod does, because you have a ton of options in the miscellaneous tab. Again, this is all decorative. It does not really do much. I mean, sure enough, passengers will use it. But aside from that, it is just decorative stuff. We have the NL overpass. Those are the ones that I've just shown you. And these things are modular, so I can have one over here and one over there. And they're not exactly connected. As soon as I add a second one in between, then they get connected. You also have a reversed one. So you can have, as you can see here, one going up one side and one going up the other side. So that's an additional option that you have. You also have a two-sided one. So let's say that I have a bit more room over here. I'm going to have a two-sided one, and that just allows the passengers to go up from two different sides. Then, if your passengers are at their track, or, well, if they want to get onto a train, they're going to have to buy a ticket. This is normally done automatically in the game, and these NL ticket machines don't really add much, but they are, well, they are pretty much everywhere here in the Netherlands. And from these things you can buy your own train tickets. So with these things added, it just gives that little bit of extra realism to the mod, or to your train station. You also have a couple of different waiting areas. You have just a waiting area like this, which is a couple of benches. Let me remove the ticket machines. You have the NL shelter. And if I can fit that on there. There you go. That adds a couple of these benches, but also a sort of enclosed bench over here in one of these little cabins. And you have finally the NL platform roof. And with that, you can then add a, well, let's say a more normal Dutch roof, as opposed to the platform roof that the game normally adds, which look very similar, but this one is just a bit different. Now, the beauty of it is that this mod is entirely interoperable with the other mods. So the one that I've shown you previous, the modular station roof, works very, very well with this one. And you can have a, let's see if this actually does all stack. It does indeed. You can have a modular roof like that and still have the overpasses. So people can move over the tracks and, well, maybe it's a really busy station and you don't want them to just use the overpasses. You also want them to have the ability to use the tunnels, in which case you can still add those. Do these things add a ton of functionality? Not really, but I think they look really, really nice. At least for me, it is very recognizable to have both the overpass and the underpass, and of course the station roof from the different mod. They just make your station a lot more, well, at least for me, recognizable, but I think less vanilla than the other mods, or than the other basic train station. Because the standard train station, I mean, it looks really futuristic, this one. But it's a bit bland. It is just an underpass over here. You got the clocks, you got a couple of benches, some waste bins. No ticketing machines, I might add. So I guess everybody's using some form of electronic payment. Well, let's not get into that. And, well, it's a bit bland. These things, I feel, with their overpasses, have a lot more character. And of course, you can still say, well, I kind of like the normal roofs, but I do want to have those overpasses. And you can still blend these mods between each other. So you can still have the roof and, or that's the vanilla roof, by the way, and still have an overpass. So that is the NL modular station. For the last mod of this mod showcase, we have the freight station mod. This is the freight yard, or the freight classification yard, and let me highlight the difference. Normally, when you place down a cargo station, it's going to look something like this. Let's say I want to use this forest over here. I will deploy a station, and that would be it. It's, well, it's really quite dull in a sense. With the freight station mod, and a couple of art assets, you can end up with something that looks like this. This is the main station, right over here. This is the station. It's called Braiding, and right next to it I have Braiding East, a truck stop. Now, what this freight yard mod allows you to do is add a freight yard that's then fully customizable. So let me highlight how I did this. Let's say I want to have a freight station over here, and I'm going to dress it up a little bit. I'm going to start out with a freight classification yard. That's what the main mod adds. Be advised, a couple of the things that I just showed you, they are in asset mods. They're linked on the page that has the freight classification yard, but you might need to subscribe to some more mods to make it as, well, as beautiful as you like. For this situation over here, I'm going to go with a, let's say, a fairly elaborate freight yard. So I have 4 tracks, and this is just the start of it. What I now want to do is add a few standard cargo buildings. That's what I'm going to start with, a couple of large side buildings. Then I'm going to add my truck stop. Not that it's probably going to be really required here, but it just adds a bit more flavor. So there's my truck stop. And now we're going to get into the meat and bones of the mod. If you click configure, you can go to the platforms and you will eventually end up with these symbols. The ground cargo area concrete, the hidden cargo area concrete, and then you have the versions for gravel and the versions for paved. In this version, or in this video, I'm going to showcase the concrete version. So these are tracks. Sorry, platforms, not tracks. These are platforms. There is, however, a significant difference. These are solid, collision on, as it says in the tooltip, and these are off, so no collision. And that is handy, because that means that these, well, you can do all sorts of neat things with these. Let me first put up an additional... actually, no, I can go use these. I'm going to use the hidden cargo area concrete. And this is going to be, let's say, the end of my tracks, the end of my station. So what I'll have over here is a sorting yard. It does not do anything. That's something you need to be aware of. It does not do anything. So this means that you're going to find that, sure enough, it looks nice. Well, it looks really nice with all the art assets, but it doesn't do anything. So if you're purely somebody who says, I want to make my stuff functional, then this is probably not the mod for you. Or rather, there are all sorts of things that you can do with this mod that might not interest you that much. Now, I want to have a couple of areas over here where I'm going to have trains which are parked. So this is just going to be a place where, let's say, excessive cargo is stored temporarily. So just a couple of tracks. And now these are the standard tracks, but what I did with the mod is allow for those things to be built over concrete areas. This is important because it then, with this collision off, allows you to build right on top of the station. And then in the art asset, and you might not have used this menu because, well, I don't really get into it, the terrain area, well, aside from lowering and raising the terrain, but assets, that's not something I touch a whole lot on. Let's say I want to have a couple of trains on here. You can do that. You can have all sorts of different... Oh, sorry, these are the trailers. Here we are. Boxcar, 40 feet, pack 1. This is just one of the mods that do this. So right over here, I can have a couple of these things being parked. I can have the Toronto, I can have some Ontario vehicles. And as you might see, these actually snap to tracks, which makes it look really, really nice. Okay, we're going to dress this thing up a little further. What I also want to have over here is another cargo building to sort of encapsulate my truck stop. So let's go with another large building and a large side building. Again, this does not really do anything functional. It does not connect to the road. This thing is already connected to the road, so this doesn't really matter. Now, what I also want is an actual sort of functional yard. So you actually get an idea that something is happening over here. Let's deploy some more platforms. For this one, I'm going to go with the concrete area collision on. This is just going to be an area where I can stash cargo. But keep in mind, cargo is being stashed right next to the track. As far as I know, it does not stash over here. Now let me also put down some more actual tracks. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to look nice, but the train won't really be able to leave the station. So let's set up a couple of outbound tracks. Let's say going that way. And you two are going to blend in. I don't particularly care how you do it, because this is just sheerly an example station. There. Okay, so that's my freight yard. Now I have some room to deploy some more art assets over here. For that, I'm going to go with, and this is another mod. This is the extra assets. And again, link down below in the description for the asset mods. Keep in mind they are not part of the main mod that I'm currently discussing, which is the freight yard mod. I'm going to have an oil refinery tank, or a couple of those. And, of course, there are vehicles which are loading and offloading. You can have these with collision on or collision off. If I have collision on, you cannot place them here, because this is solid. If I have collision off trucks, I can actually deploy them. And then with the menu on the right-hand side, you can pick what sort of vehicles you want. In this case, I think it would be suitable to have a truck or two, which are being filled up of sorts. Keep in mind, they are just art assets. They don't actually do anything aside from that. Next to the tracks, I also want to have some assets. Let's go with some, let's say some containers. These could be just some containers that are, well, make-believe being readied to be loaded onto the cargo. Or onto the train. So I can have a couple of Euro container fuel storages over here, fuel containers. And with the menu down here, construction height, I can also have these in a 2-stack, 3-stack, 4-stack. They go up as high as 4, but I would recommend placing the X3 before you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have this situation, where it's just floating in midair, which is a little weird. Alright, what else can we deploy? What other assets are available? Let's say maybe have a small shelter over here where some of the workforce can be housed. And you can place these down also on the top of your truck stop. So let's say that your truck drivers supposedly need to go on a toilet break. They can do that over there. Now this is just the beginning. I imagine that you can spend hours decorating and adjusting and, well, figuring out how you want it to look and what works. And figuring out what sort of building, train station, well, freight yard, whatever you want to build. Because you have a ton of options. Something else that I like to do in this case is, for example, set up a bunch of railings. So let's say that's the exit for my freight yard. Again, it's only decorative. Although I could also do it for the truck stop. So I could have my truck stop and then put these things on the outsides. And this way you get a sort of encapsulated idea. Where it's not just accessible to anybody. It's not like you can just drive in. No, this is actually a place of work. Where you're not supposed to just drive in. You're supposed to actually wait your turn. Let's see, can I scale that up? Yep. Maybe 2.5 is a little better. There, this is a working refinery. So you have to drive underneath these things, and I think that the vehicles will do that anyway, in order to get into that particular place where, in this case, I would pick up oil. So again, this is the freight yard mod. The freight classification yard doesn't add a ton of stuff, but it adds a foundation to add a whole bunch of art assets. Like these things. They don't really do much. They just make the game look a hell of a lot better. And, well, this is as far as I'm going to cover it, because this part's already 10 minutes long. Links down below in the description. Let me know what you think about all the mods that I've showcased so far. I'm really curious to see what you guys have considered, what you guys have designed, what you guys have come up with. So if you have anything that you want to share, upload it to Imgur and or just post a screenshot down below. Because with all these mods, I think you can create some beautiful stations. Whether it's for a bus, whether it's for a train, whether it's a freight yard that you have come up with. It's, well, it's your oyster. You can do whatever the hell you like with these mods. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting, and I shall see you soon for more videos.